You know, I love to analyze movies, and it drives my parents crazy. They say, why can't you just enjoy a movie without picking it apart? And I say, how can you enjoy a movie and not pick it apart? The unexamined life is not worth living. But it is in times like these where I really sympathize with that point of view. Because if this is the first video of mine you're watching, this is the second of a two-part series called Knee-Jerk Reactions, where I first post my immediate, unfiltered emotional reaction to a movie before going away, letting it settle, thinking about it, and ending up here. And here is not a comfortable place to be. I think my headspace is like the movie review landscape. I am so conflicted about this movie. There is seemingly nothing the internet can agree on. Maxwell Lord is amazing. Maxwell Lord is awful. Pascal is a good actor, but he's terrible in this movie. The visuals are bright and colourful. The visuals are cartoonish. The story is heartwarming. The story is stupid. Diana's great in this movie. Diana's awful in this movie. After agonising over it for so long, I think we have a Last Jedi Batman vs Superman scenario on our hands, where there is seemingly nothing people can agree on other than that the movie has problems. It's what those problems are and the degree to which they matter that is causing contention. Enter the why it does or doesn't work for me argument. I can't think of a movie or TV show other than the two I just mentioned where that is more appropriate. So let's take a second look at Wonder Woman 1984. We start off with little Diana doing the Amazonian version of Ninja Warrior. She loses her horse and takes a shortcut leading to Robin Wright, who looks amazing. I mean, I totally buy she could break a person in half, stopping Diana at the final hurdle and saying she can't win because she cheated. There are some cool set pieces here, and it does give us an interesting look at Amazonian culture, but there's really no reason for it to be here story-wise, other than establishing the theme of not taking shortcuts in life. It does also establish that Diana is not a perfect human being. She does have her faults like everyone else, which is something I so appreciate about these films. Diana is one of the best people in the world, but she's not a shining beacon of perfection. She is a layered and nuanced character. She may not be as complex as a lot of her counterparts, but she does have depth too. I've heard a lot of arguments that this scene was pointless, and I can appreciate that point of view, since it really didn't tie into anything story-wise. But everything I said above made it more than worth its inclusion. In fact, just seeing Robin Wright again would have made it more than worth its inclusion. Now we jump forward to 1984 where a robbery at a mall is taking place, and I found this to be another point of contention. Whether that be to capitalise on the currently waning nostalgia for the 80s, or if they just wanted to make something more colourful and family friendly, I can't say. For my own merits, I like that it's bright and colourful. And like I said in my knee-jerk reaction, I loved that when a gun was pulled on her, her first instinct was to talk the robber down. That is the kind of hero Wonder Woman has always been for me. Her first instinct is to give someone a chance. But I do agree that the actual fight here is a little cartoony. That would be okay if it weren't in contrast with the film's ambition to be a serious emotional drama about Diana's pain and loneliness. This is an issue I take with several scenes in the movie. Goofy and cringy are how I would describe them. I said previously that Patty Jenkins expressed an interest in directing comedies, but her strength seems to be more in the dramatic. The rest of the first act is kind of lackluster. It really just focuses on Diana's loneliness and introducing Barbara Minerva. Now, they seem to be going with the rebirth version of Barbara, who is an eager scientist who is obsessed with how unremarkable she is, and the minute she is given the chance at power, she takes it. And she hates Diana, just out of pure jealousy. Now, Kristen Wiig is decent at playing the meek scientist, and I really believe this is a person who would take any chance to be a better, more beautiful, more powerful version of herself. But there is a problem with her casting, and I'll get to that later on. Really, this whole part of the movie is pretty skippable if it weren't for crucial plot information, so I'll just give that to you now. We are introduced to Maxwell Lord, who is a shady businessman dealing in oil, who's basically conned his way into investments, but now his investors are running out of patience and he's getting desperate. The one good thing I mentioned before is the injection of humanity into this character by way of his son, whom he clearly loves and just wants to be a man his son can be proud of. Meanwhile, Barbara is tasked with examining artifacts, one of which is a wish stone. Where did it come from? I don't know. How did it get here? I don't know. Diana, Lord and Barbara make wishes holding the stone. Lord gets around the one wish rule and wishes to be the stone itself. Barbara wishes to be more like Diana and Diana wishes for Steve. And I think when Steve shows up is when the movie really gets started. I like that Steve goes out of his way to keep the place clean since he's an army man and most likely wouldn't be comfortable around mess and clutter in his living space. That was a nice little bit of subtle characterization. Or maybe I'm just reading too much into that and he didn't want the place to be messy when he eventually found Diana. Given the writing quality of this film, I'm not exactly sure which one it is. Right. Let's talk about Steve coming back in another person's body. The more I thought about it, the more I asked, why? I mean, it wasn't for any particular plot reason. It didn't add any emotion to Diana having to let him go. And it creates a giant trumpeting elephant in the room, which I will get to. But there was no reason for this to be there. He came back because of a magical wish-granting stone that can basically do anything. What were Diana's inner thoughts when she made that wish? I wish for the spirit of Steve Trevor? I know that by monkey's paw logic you have to sacrifice something for your wish, and the price is always higher than the prize. But they already established that Diana getting weaker is the price she has to pay. And don't forget, it's you that has to pay the price, not some randomer. I can't help but wonder how much more it could have added if Steve genuinely did come back. Like he was dropped into the 1980s in the clothes he was wearing when he died and had to navigate his surroundings. Now, I dropped out of spy school in my first semester, but I'm pretty sure one of the crucial lessons they teach you is how to blend in unfamiliar environments. Wouldn't the first act have been so much better if we saw Diana living her life while Steve searches for her? It would have added some much needed tension to the first act, explored Diana's loneliness without feeling self-indulgent or, uncharitably, boring, and displayed Steve's unique skill set, re-establishing him as a valuable ally. I don't get this decision at all. Okay. Let's address the elephant. One thing I saw come up many, many times when I was looking at other people's reactions to this film was that Diana basically rapes this guy. Yeah. How did I miss that the first time? I can only surmise that I was just so happy to see Steve back that it didn't occur to me. Because once they establish that this is in fact another person's body, and they quite seriously go out of their way to establish that, they don't address it ever again until that little scene at the end. So not only do they put this guy's body in all kinds of danger, but Diana sleeps with Steve in that body. Yikes. Now granted, we don't actually see them have sex, and if you wanted to give this film the barest benefit of the doubt, or simply just can't handle the idea of Wonder Woman being a rapist, you can do that. But them waking up together in that bed and snuggling gives us a pretty clear, pretty unescapable indication that they did more than sleeping in that bed. Oh god, I still can't believe I didn't see that the first time. I'm normally the first person to point this out when this shit happens in comic books. Seriously, what is it with comic book properties and male rape? Green Arrow, drugged and raped. Batman, drugged and raped. Jason Todd. Okay, not technically rape, but he was taken in by Talia al Ghul as a catatonic, unresponsive 15-year-old put into the Lazarus pit by her, and in her own League of Assassins way, she basically finished raising him until he hit 18 and then she fucks him. And it's only portrayed as a bad thing because she's using him to fuck with Batman. Yeah, that's the only thing wrong with that scenario. That's called grooming, Judd Winnick. And Nightwing. This has happened to Nightwing twice in comic book history. And now this movie. God, what is wrong with people? This is so fucked up. Okay, moving on, because if I don't, I'm just going to make myself angry. So I do think the way Lord got around the whole one wish thing was pretty clever. He then proceeds to manipulate people into wishing for things that he actually wants, and in return he takes something he also wants. He uses it to get rid of the problem posed by his investors, and then proceeds to use it to build his empire. Meanwhile, Steve and Diana go looking through this poor guy's wardrobe, which again becomes pointless as Steve just puts on the same thing he was wearing the day before. I've said previously that I do not like the men's fashion in this. Diana, on the other hand, is so stylish. I want every outfit she wears in this movie. They then proceed to go around town and do the fish out of water thing. Now, this was another point of contention among reviewers. Some liked it, some didn't. Some thought it spent too much time dallying around and was cringy, which is a point of view I can sympathise with, but others, including myself, saw this as a good inversion of the trope. When Diana came to man's world, she was a stranger in a strange land, so everything she did there was reasonable, like not moving out of the way from cars. Steve, on the other hand, is someone whose profession and passion relied on the advancement of technology. So his wide-eyed wonder about how far humanity had come was pretty character appropriate and endearing. Meanwhile, Barbara is enjoying her newfound popularity and strength before Diana bursts her bubble because no matter how happy she is to see Steve again, she still worries that this thing has brought him back. Diana and Steve investigate Lord's offices, and I think they did a really good job of making Steve and Diana feel like a unit. They are working together here, and both their skill sets come in handy. Another point of view I came across is some people thought that unlike the first movie, Steve was just being dragged along here and didn't really add all that much. This is one of the few times where I really just couldn't see where the other side was coming from. Just because she is now his guide doesn't mean he's not contributing. Although, him flying the jet? Now, I have no idea about the difference in aviation technology between World War I and 1988, so anyone that does, I would be fascinated to hear your thoughts as to whether you think Steve would actually be able to fly this thing. And you're telling me Steve hasn't seen fireworks? People in Tudor England have seen fireworks. Anyway, they steal the jet and head to Bialia, a fictional DC country I'm happy to see mentioned because maybe it means Wonder Woman will go up against Queen Bee in the future, where a prince wishes that his country had its greatness back, and Lord in return takes the prince's security because as it turns out he sold off all his oil. You'd think Lord would have done a bit more research before choosing his target, but I think we've already established he's not a good businessman. Diana and Steve come across Lord what looks like by chance, and there's a decent car chase / battle that gives us early indications that Diana is becoming weaker, since this is a woman who can withstand a headbutt from Superman. Meanwhile, Barbara's researching the stone for Diana, and we see her falling deeper and deeper into viciousness as her powers intoxicate her. Her research tells her that the stone has popped up where great power has risen and fallen, employing a trope I hate, which is to blame the world's problems on one evil thing. Diana and Steve head home, and the trio find out that the only way to stop the chaos is to renounce your wish. Both Barbara and Diana are unwilling to do that. I said before that I love that we get a glimpse into Diana's very understandable selfishness here. She says, I save people, I'm happy to do it, but you're the only thing I want, the only thing I ever asked for, I'm not giving you up. And we are introduced to the golden armour, which will be used later in the movie, and the story of Asteria, who was an Amazon who used the armour to fend off the armies of man's world while her Amazon sisters escaped to Themyscira. A pretty pointless plot device, but we'll get to that. Lord is struggling with his new enterprise because in addition to biting off more than he can chew, the stone is taking its payment from his very body. And he's forgetting why he's doing this in the first place. His son. He goes to the president because thanks to the Bialian prince's wish, the Middle East is falling apart and war is imminent, and takes his position of power in exchange for more nukes. Mr. President, why didn't you just wish for no nukes? But then again, I suppose there would be a price for that too. There's a fight in the White House, which again displays that Diana is getting weaker, and I really think they could have gone further with this losing her powers instead of just getting injured. It seems like they're just using it to plug a plot hole as to why Diana can't take all these people out instantly, rather than using it thematically. Barbara, once again unwilling to relinquish her wish, fights Diana, despite the fact that Diana's also unwilling to relinquish her wish. Shouldn't they be working together at this point to find another way? And only when Diana finally comes to terms with the fact that there is no other way, then they turn on each other. Barbara beats Diana, but leaves her alive, escaping with Lord. Then she wishes to be an apex predator, and I'm only assuming she got a second wish because she originally wished on the stone and not Max. I guess you could argue that point, but I don't think it's something really worth nitpicking over. The world is falling into chaos, Diana is injured, and Steve begs her to relinquish her wish, saying he's already gone. Now, I was totally immersed in the emotion of this scene. I felt every second, believed every line, bought into the connection these two actors gave their characters. Only to find out that a fair number of people did not share my opinion. Something it reminded me of was when I watched a decently large movie YouTuber review the first Wonder Woman film, and when they got to the no man's land scene, he hated it. I think his exact words were, "She looks like she's in a shampoo commercial." And it was one of those situations where I thought, I guess if I squint I can see what you mean, but seriously? That is how I feel about a fair number of negative reactions to certain parts of this film. But I am well aware of the fact that two people can agree something is a problem, but the degree to which it ruins a movie or TV show is entirely down to the person, which is what I brought up in my criticisms of Thor Ragnarok. I don't think that there are many people who would give a lot of strong rebuttals to what I said, but I think would be more likely to say, so? So Diana renounces her wish, and her love for Steve and his memory allows her to unlock the power of flight, which I said in part 1 felt like his last gift to her. And it was very sweet, thank you very much. She goes and grabs the armor, fights Cheetah, and I think something pretty much everyone can agree on is that the CGI is not great. I like the overall anthropomorphic shape of Cheetah, I like the way she moves, but it's very clear that they're keeping her in low light to hide a multitude of sins. I said I had a problem with Wig's casting here, and this is the reason. I think she makes a good Barbara, but I don't think she makes a good Cheetah. I just don't think she has enough of an intimidation factor to make Cheetah threatening. Even after she gets her powers, she still feels more unsure and scared rather than manic and power hungry. Of course, those qualities are born out of fear, but I just didn't see them. Which, again, for me, calls into question what causes people to view movies the way they do, because a commenter on my last video said that this was the first time he did find Cheetah legitimately threatening. So, again, each to their own, I suppose. The fight is okay, but the armor turns out to be pretty pointless both story-wise and thematically. It's really just there so they can make a new action figure. One thing I really liked is that once again Diana tries to appeal to her enemy, but Barbara isn't having it, so Diana subdues her and goes to deal with Lord, who is sucking the wishes of all humanity. I loved this scene. I have heard so many criticisms of it, one of them being Gadot's acting, and I just don't get it. I felt every moment of this scene. Once again, I addressed this in part 1, so I won't repeat myself too much here, but Wonder Woman was conceived as a hero who solved problems through gentle means before resorting to physical fighting. It didn't always work out that way. Sometimes an enemy just wouldn't be reasoned with and you had to go in fist first.
I take it deliberations are over.
It did not go well.
And then still try and negotiate along the way, but don't kill if you can wound. Don't wound if you can subdue. don't subdue if you can pacify, and never raise your hand until you first extended it. This is that. This is how Wonder Woman solves problems. She is a fighter, and we should get to see her fight. We should get to experience the excitement of her power. But in the end, this kind of appeal to people's better nature is who Wonder Woman is for me. And it is still pretty unique in the landscape of superhero movies. I mean, people complained that they only had Ares there because they needed to have a big blowout fight at the end of the first Wonder Woman movie. And that is really the same case with Cheetah. She didn't really need to be there. Her only purpose was to get a physical battle into the film. But this is the kind of unique way of defeating your enemy I think a lot of people were asking for. You don't need a big blowout fight at the end of a superhero movie. You can find other ways to solve your problems. The closest thing I can equate to it is any of you who are into anime, it's kind of like Naruto's Talk no Jutsu, although many people have made comments about how ridiculously effective that is. But the difference with Wonder Woman is sometimes she manages to appeal to the better nature of mankind, and sometimes, like in the case of Barbara, she fails. Solve problems through means of the heart and through the hope that mankind can do better. And lastly, we are treated to a very cool after credit scene where Linda Carter appears as Asteria, the lost Amazon, and I have so many questions. Is this just a cameo, or are we going to get to see more of her? Another Amazon who has lived in the world of man for centuries. Has she been helping out humanity all this time, or has she just lived her life? I want to know. I am so curious. Wouldn't it be amazing to see Linda Carter play this mysterious Amazon? It would almost make the pointlessness of the golden armor worth it. Now, I think in addition to Patty Jenkins having more strength with drama rather than comedy, has more strength in directing rather than writing, because most of the problems with this film can be put down to the story. It has some good ideas, but the movie lacks the structure to make those ideas fully shine, and that is the big problem. I could give you a long speech about how I think the movie could have been better, but in my research into other people's reactions, I came across a Nando vs. Movies video about Wonder Woman 1984 where he proposed a way to make the golden armor make more sense, and in turn pitched a much more coherent movie. So I would really just be parroting what he said, so I've left a link below. So that was my more in-depth reaction to Wonder Woman 1984. And did it change much from my knee-jerk reaction? Oh boy, yes! Because I had such fun with Wonder Woman 1984 when I first saw it. I was aware it had problems, but I think considering just how excited I was to see these characters again, the degree to which these problems mattered was less when compared to when I really started thinking about it. So how do I feel about the movie now? Like I said, conflicted. There are lots of things I loved, and I genuinely do believe there is a good movie in there somewhere. So I thought a fun thing to do, instead of rating the movie, I would measure how much my opinion has changed. And I didn't really do a 180 so much as a 270. I went from good to bad to there's something good in there. So all of you left some amazing comments on my last video, some really great insights. One commenter even apologising for bursting my bubble, and I'm saying, no, burst away. That is the point of this two-tiered style of reviewing. I want to know if my opinion will change after more in-depth thought and hearing how other people view a film. So I guess my question for this comment section is, has your opinion changed? Do you feel any differently about the movie or certain parts of the movie after letting it settle for a while and listening to how other people perceived it? Let me know. And happy 2021, everybody.